Channel Status Theory, Episode 30. The luxury market does not run on desire, it runs on fear. Not the fear of missing out on a nice object, a deeper fear, the fear of falling behind, of being seen as less than you are, of the person next to you having something that signals they are ahead of you in a game neither of you has admitted to playing. This fear has a name. Alain de Botton called it status anxiety in his 2004 book of the same name. It is the chronic, low-grade dread that your position in the social order is insecure, that others are judging you and finding you wanting, that what you have is not quite enough. Status anxiety is the engine of the luxury market, not aspiration, not desire, fear. And once you understand that, every luxury brand strategy suddenly makes perfect sense. Status anxiety is not a modern invention. Thorstein Veblen described its effects in 1899, but its intensity in modern societies has been significantly amplified by specific conditions. The first is meritocracy. In aristocratic societies, your position was determined by birth. You did not compete for it. There was no shame in being a peasant because that was simply what you were born into. Meritocracy, the idea that position in society reflects personal ability and effort, makes every status difference feel like a verdict on you as a person. If success is earned, then not success implies you did not earn it. The social hierarchy becomes a constant reflection of personal worth. The philosopher Michael Sandel has argued that meritocracy's winners often fail to take sufficient account of luck, starting conditions, and structural advantage. But more importantly for our purposes, its losers often internalize their position as deserved. This internalization is the engine of status anxiety. The belief that where you stand is where you deserve to stand, combined with the fear that where you stand is not high enough. The second amplifier is comparison. Human beings have always compared themselves to their immediate social world. For most of human history, that world was a village or a town. The comparison pool was limited to people you actually knew. Modern media, especially social media, has expanded the comparison pool to everyone, everywhere, all the time. You are no longer comparing yourself to your neighbors. You are comparing yourself to the most curated, aspirational, successful version of thousands of people you will never meet. Luxury brands do not market to desire. They market to relief. The implicit promise of every luxury purchase is, this will help you feel more secure. Buy this watch, and you will feel like the kind of person who belongs in rooms where such watches are worn. Carry this bag, and you will feel like the kind of person who does not worry about whether they belong. Wear this label, and the question of your standing will be answered before anyone asks. The relief is real and temporary, which is, from a business model perspective, perfect. If a luxury purchase provided permanent relief from status anxiety, consumers would buy once and be satisfied. But the relief is temporary because the anxiety is structural, not material. No object can permanently answer the question, am I enough? Because the question is not really about objects. It is about identity and belonging. So the consumer buys again and again. The cycle is self-reinforcing.
Research on the treadmill of material consumption, called the hedonic treadmill by psychologists Brickman and Campbell, shows that the satisfaction from any acquisition fades relatively quickly as it is incorporated into baseline expectations. The $5,000 watch becomes ordinary. The $500,000 car becomes the new normal. The anxiety returns, and so does the drive to consume. Status anxiety is not evenly distributed. It is significantly more intense in societies with high economic inequality. The research of Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett, documented in The Spirit Level, 2009, showed that social and health outcomes, including mental health, trust, and markers of social anxiety, are consistently worse in more unequal societies, even when controlling for absolute income levels. A poor person in an equal society has objectively lower anxiety than a comparably poor person in a highly unequal one. Because in a highly unequal society, the distance between where you are and where the top is larger and more visible. This means the luxury market is not merely a consequence of wealth, it is a consequence of the visibility of wealth difference. Societies where the gap between rich and poor is large and highly visible produce the most intense status anxiety and the most active luxury markets. The anxiety is the demand. This creates a specific dynamic. As inequality grows, the luxury market does not just grow at the top, it grows in the aspirational middle. When the people around you appear to be winning, spending on luxury signals is a defensive strategy, an attempt to claim a position in the hierarchy before it is assigned without your input. The luxury market is the most honest market in the economy, in a specific sense. It reveals exactly what people are actually afraid of. The growth of the luxury goods market from approximately $77 billion in 1995 to over $350 billion by the early 2020s is not primarily a story about rising wealth. It is a story about rising anxiety at every level of the income distribution. Bain & Company tracks the global personal luxury goods market annually, and their research consistently shows that growth accelerates during periods of increased social comparison pressure. Luxury brands have industrialized the relief from status anxiety. They have turned the chronic fear of not enough into a trillion-dollar market. They have created objects that promise, briefly, to answer the question that the modern social order makes unanswerable. Am I where I am supposed to be? The object never permanently answers the question, but the market depends on the question never going away. Status anxiety is not a pathology. It is a rational response to a system that has monetized the gap between where people are and where they believe they should be. The luxury market does not create the anxiety. It just found the most efficient way to sell relief from it. Understanding this does not mean opting out. Most people cannot, even if they want to. But it means seeing the game as it is. Not a competition for the most beautiful objects, but a competition to feel, for a moment, like the answer is yes. That is the real luxury market, and that is why it will never stop growing. This is Status Theory. Subscribe, and we will keep showing you the game behind the game.